Hey guys, Bad Snacks here, and today we're cooking with Meris. All right, so today I have 3 different recipes for you guys. We're gonna start with the first one, and we're gonna actually start with a blank patch. And we're gonna recreate this patch that I've called Cutie, because it's very, very adorable. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm going to go to the mode, I'm setting it to dry poly, and I'm going to use the pitch shifter here. So I'm going to set it up a fifth, which is 7 semitones. And we're gonna get it just exact. Because with most recipes, we're going to measure from our heart, but pitch is not one of them. So then with the dry blend, we're going to go for about 30%. And with the mod speed and mod depth, we're not gonna worry about those for now. We're gonna move on to the filter. With the type, I am going to use a ladder type filter. The frequency, I'm gonna bring it down about 150. We're gonna set it to low pass filter. Already it's very nice. It's got this really nice silky texture, if you will. The resonance, I'm going to just boost the resonance just a little bit. And then this is gonna be really important later. We're going to just add a little pinch of noise here, like 7% noise. And you can hear that kind of windy quality. We're going to tone that down, but in a bit, so just keep that in mind. With the filter envelope amount, we're gonna bring this down maybe to about 75%, just a slight change, just to mellow it out a little bit so that it's not so spicy. Now we're going into the filter envelope and we have our ADSR here. I'm gonna set the attack to 0. Go straight into the full depth of sound there. I'm gonna set that sustain level up a bit and the sustain up a bit as well, just to get that nice tonal quality. I'm gonna bring the decay to 0. There we go. And now I'm gonna go over to my amplitude envelope. And for the note persist, I'm actually gonna bring this down. Note persist is a really great little ingredient, if you will, for taking short attack kind of tones like from guitar, or if I'm plucking my violin, and really sustaining those notes longer than maybe their normal organic life would last. But in this case, I'm gonna just take it down because I'm gonna be bowing this patch as well. So I'm bringing down the note persist quite a bit, and then again, attack is 0, decay is 0. Maybe let's bring the sustain level down just a smidge. And we're gonna bring the release down just a smidge too, because this is gonna be a little bit more of like a cascading patch. You'll see what I mean in a minute. With the drive, I'm going to set it to the tube here. And you'll notice that it's already getting that really nice kind of lo-fi quality. I have it set to pre-ambience, and with the gain, I'm gonna just turn that up a little bit, and the level I'm gonna turn up just a little bit. And you're already getting a little bit of those crunchy bits, which I really love. The clock is important, but not right now, and I'll explain why once we get to modifiers. With ambience, we're going to change this from large prism, which is a type of reverb, over to echo. And we're going to use the left division at a dotted half note. We're going to use the right division at an 1/8 note. And we're keeping our feedback at 50%, our mix at 50%. So what this is gonna do is, now that I have these at different divisions, we're gonna get a little bit more of that stereo ping pong type depth. So now under our modulation window, we're going to set this to vibrato, and it's going to add a little bit more of that lo-fi flavor. I have it set to pre-ambience, and I have it just about at 2-point-something hertz. Again, we're measuring with the heart. Note division, we don't really need to worry about that right now. And then the depth, we're setting at a solid 7%. And it's just enough of that warbly quality that we're really, that I personally really love about like the lo-fi aesthetic, if you will. Mix is perfect as it is. Modifiers, let's get into modifiers because this is where it gets pretty fun. So first of all, our hold modifier, we're setting this to a momentary latch with a tap assign, which means that now I can control the clock. Which is already like so juicy. It's so juicy. And now I'm gonna go down to the sequencer. So remember how I was like, the noise is important, but we're not going to use it in this very windy way, and I'll show you why. Now I'm showing you why, which is that in the sequence division, we're gonna set this to an 1/8 note sequencer division, and then the speed I'm setting to 0.175, and I am assigning this sequencer to the filter noise. So now, and I'm gonna set this to a faster clock so you can hear it. So essentially what this is doing is that with every step of the sequence, it's a different percentage of that 7% of noise. So what that means is that I'm bringing the noise down to this randomized quality, which is very kind of classic in these old analog machines. And I figured if we're going for kind of this lo-fi type of patch that it would make sense to do that. So I'm going to just set these first 8 steps to a variation between 25% and under. And this is such a subtle little trick. It's going to sound very subtle, but it's more of a textural thing than anything. And I am a big textures girl. So I'm just setting it to the first 8 steps, and the rest of the steps I set to 0. It's going to skip those steps. So now you can hear just a little bit of that noise, but it's way more controlled and it's going to be way more subtle. So now, we have this delicious little cutie patch. Let's do a little taste test. So this next recipe is a lot more smooth in texture. It's very creamy, it's got a little bit of a fluttery quality to it, or maybe, I don't know, zesty, if you will. And it is a glide synth patch. So basically, it's a patch that can be controlled as a desktop synth, but I can also control it with my violin. So I'm gonna do that while I'm designing the patch. Ergonomically, it's a little easier right now. And so what we're gonna do is we're going to make a poly synth patch. And for the primary oscillator, I'm going to go with a square. And for the secondary oscillator, I'm going with a triangle, both at unison. It gets me every time. It's so spooky. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just set the detune of the second oscillator just a little bit. I'm going to bring the mod speed and mod depth down. So we're kind of working with that sustained. So that we're kind of starting with a nice, silky, smooth texture. We're going to go to our filter. I'm using the ladder filter, setting the frequency to about, 200 odd. Again, we're measuring from the heart here. Resonance, I'm gonna just boost that up a little bit as well. And filter, just gonna let it wash over us. The filter envelope amount, I'm gonna just bring that down a little bit so it's just a little bit under 70. And you can already hear how that is smoothing out that texture even more. So now when we go into the filter envelope and we set it to this ADSR, we're gonna just give this a little bit of a tack just to kind of smooth that out. The decay I'm setting pretty high. The sustain level is at 0, sustain at 0, release at 0. And then when it comes to the amplitude envelope, I'm gonna bring that note persist way down to 0. The attack is also going to be a 0, decay 0, sustain level. We're gonna bring that down to about half the actual sustain itself, just a pinch of sustain. And then release is at 0. No drive on this one because we are going for smooth textures, not crunchy ones. We're gonna skip the clock, it doesn't really matter for this one. The ambience, I'm going to set this to a small prism. You can think about this as like a little bit of sauce on top. And I'm gonna keep all of these parameters just about the same, maybe bring down the mix a little bit, so not to overwhelm it. Then we're going to skip the modulation and the mix is perfect the way it is. Now let's go into modifiers. So now here's where it gets pretty fun, is that we're gonna go to the hold modifier and it's set to momentary, but we're going to assign it to oscillation pitch. And I wanted to create this really cool effect where every time I hit the hold modifier, it glides down in pitch. So I'm gonna set the hold minimum actually to our starting pitch. So you can hear that that's right at our starting pitch, but then the hold maximum, I'm going to bring that down to about 73.4. So now when I hit this, so now it does this really fun glide that works really well, and because it's a polyphonic synth, you can create these really big, lush, delicious chords, hit this, and then it's going to bring everything down just about, I think it's a fifth. Yeah, it's a fifth. So now we're going to save this preset and it's called Glide Synth because that's exactly what it is. And I'm gonna hit save. And now let's try out this recipe. So now I want to show you some key ingredients that I used in my new song, Moon Bloom. And honestly, these are factory default patches that came with the MERIS ENZO X that I hardly did anything to because they just sounded really good and they worked. So I'm going to just show you what I used and what I did. Starting with the Mono Night Wind patch, which is this super delicious, super smooth, gazpacho-like texture of a patch that I just instantly loved. And with this, the only thing that I changed about this is if I went into filter, the original patch came with a little bit of noise, which I think is why it was called Mono Night Wind, and I simply took the wind away. So that's what I did for that patch. The next patch that I used is Flutter Mono, which is one of my personal favorite patches. And for this one, all I did was change the oscillator 2 shift to an octave. And it's got this really lovely digital quality that just adds a little bit of texture that pops out really nicely in the mix. And that one became a really key lead sound. And then I also used the polystab, and to be honest with you guys, I didn't change a dang thing about this one because it worked as the perfect hit. So now I'm gonna show you these patches in context. We're gonna go over to my Ableton session here, and I started with the flutter. And in terms of post-processing, I really didn't have to do that much to it. I added a little bit of a flanger and a little bit of reverb and then side-chained it. And then we have the Mono Night. Which adds just this really nice development. And then you'll hear it throughout the song, but there are these 2 polystab hits that happen throughout, which just adds like a really nice texture, as well as these Mono Night chimes. So in context, okay, the flutter going all through this section. So now that we've heard all of those ingredients, let's hear it all baked in together. So now that we've had 3 really good, tasty little snacks, we're gonna have a really bad drink, if you catch my drift. And that drink is actually gonna be really tasty. I'm calling it my Moonbloom cocktail, named after the single that just came out. And the original inspiration for this song, it was a little bit more of a festive thing for the winter, but I found a way to summarize it. Summarizing meaning for summer. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna take this lime, I'm gonna cut up a slice. Just a little guy. And also, for the record, I'm not a bartender. I kind of don't know what I'm doing, but it's gonna be good, I promise. So I'm taking a little bit of salt. I'm literally just gonna throw it right on the cutting board as our kind of like place to rim. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just throw lime on this glass. That's the first thing that I do, and I'll show you why in a moment. And then I'm just going to kind of spread the salt around. Some people do this as a finishing step. I like to start with this first because we're actually gonna get into a little bit of pyrotechnics here. First, by vandalizing this rosemary, which smells really, really good. And I'm going to light it on fire a little bit. This feels really illegal, but it's not. And it's actually, because it's fresh, it's harder to get a smolder on it. So just gonna torture this rosemary for a second until we get that really good smolder. You can see the flames. Hopefully the fire alarm doesn't go off. And I'm gonna just sneak that under here. And I'm gonna just let that kind of smolder out and smoke a little bit. And now I'm gonna make the actual drink portion of the cocktail. So you can use pomegranate juice. This one is a pomegranate blueberry juice, which I thought was really appropriate for summer. So I'm gonna take my apparatus here. I've already got some ice in here. And I am going to start actually with the mezcal, because we're kind of going for a margarita type of vibe. And I prefer mezcal to tequila because it's got that smoky flavor, and especially with the smoky rosemary, it's gonna just like really double down on that flavor profile. So like I said with the patches, we measure from the heart. This is kind of more of a guideline. I'm gonna do 2 parts-ish of mezcal, just like that. Throw this guy to the side. And then we have a Cointreau here. You can also use a triple sec, unless that's kind of the same thing. I'm gonna do 1 part of that. And I feel like this kind of just makes it a smoother type of cocktail. Throw that to the side. And then I'm gonna take this pomegranate blueberry number, and I am gonna try to not make a mess by doing this. And I'm gonna do like 2 parts of this, and then another 2 parts of this. Boop. Okay. Put the lid on that. Okay. And now I'm going to put the cap back on my apparatus. Give it a good shake. This is the part that makes me feel kind of official, but I've never been a bartender. And then we're gonna take our smoked out lime salt rimmed glass. We're gonna add a little bit of ice into here. And then we just give it a good pour. Nailed it. Okay, and then as the garnish, I like to take my little toasted piece of rosemary and just throw it on top. And then you have a moon bloom cocktail. It's time to give this a taste. Here we go. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's delightful. That's delightful. It's like simultaneously being on a beach, but in the forest at the same time. It's like when you're like chilling by a river in the middle of summer. That's this vibe. Sorry guys, you're not having any of this.